be present for a great presentation. We've all been faced with trying to adjust to living in this new normal with COVID. And I think everybody's probably tired of hearing about COVID, and all of the adjustments that we have to make in living with COVID. But it's a reality. And for many of us, it has increased our virtual world presence. We are still on social media, probably a lot more than what we normally would be. In addition to the fact that we're probably on social media or virtual Zoom meetings for work, for school. And sometimes that becomes, we don't realize the effects of it, and it can become daunting and draining even when we don't realize it. And so we have a presentation today. We are thankful to have Brittany with us from Advent Health. And the presentation today is going to focus on Moments Matter, which honestly, just the title alone was all I needed to kind of sell me on it. But after kind of hearing what the presentation is about and engaging in the digital world and managing your time and making sure that you're managing your screen hours, it's extremely important. And I know for all of us who work in an extremely stressful environment, I know that Brooke is about to graduate and walk into a world that is going to really kind of really push you and push your limits. And knowing, having the skills in place in advance is going to really help, hopefully, us find holistic health. And that's always going to be the goal. And so I am going to go ahead and hand it over to Brittany from Advent Health. I want to thank her for being here. We also have Jeannie Hoban here, who is the licensed mental health counselor that now works with the College of Law. Mrs. Holmes and I are also here. So we want to encourage engagement and interaction, even if it's just as simple as typing in the chat. But let's engage, let's be interactive, and let's make the most of this presentation. We will be posting this later for viewing for students that don't make it. So please encourage anyone who can't make it to at least follow up and watch the presentation. But I will let Brittany go ahead and kind of set the stage and tell us what we can look forward to. Brittany.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gary. And thank you all of you who are joining in to listen to this session. My name is Brittany Hupert. I am the Employee Health and Wellbeing Partner for Advent Health. And today, like Gary said, we are going to be talking about Moments Matter. So just to echo what he had just said about how we're living in this new normal and trying to navigate through, connecting with others in a safe capacity. So in order for us to do that, a lot of us have been, spending a lot more time on our technology. But we're here today to talk about how we can engage in a digital world, but with also utilizing the concepts of being mindful of how much time we are actually spending on our devices. So through our presentation, we're going to be talking about how technology affects us, understanding how we use technology and why we use technology, and what the impact of technology has on our overall health, and how we can use the concepts and tools that we talk about today to better engage in our digital world. So before we get started, I'm just going to ask all of you a fun fact or a fun question. And after we answer this question together, I'm going to encourage you all to put away your cell phone, put it on Do Not Disturb, close a work laptop, anything that has to do outside of this presentation today. I encourage you to kind of power it off and really focus on being engaged in the present moment and being mindful of your surroundings and what we're doing right here and right now. So the question that I'm going to ask you guys is, how much time do you think you spend on that beloved phone every single day? How much time do you think you spend on your phone every single day? And for those of you who have iPhones, you might be aware of this because my handy dandy iPhone tells me all the time how much time I'm spending on my screen. Anyone want to interject and tell me how much time? You can feel free to unmute yourself or you can share in the chat. All right, so Gary says 6 hours. Anyone want to counter that? Deborah says, I'm ashamed. What else do you think? How many hours? Gary's pretty close. But on average, we spend 5.5 hours a day on our cell phones. And when I saw this statistic, it actually comforted me and made me feel better, because every time that I get that notification on my iPhone, it tells me that I spend on average 5 hours a day on it. And just to, make a little note there, it's not just time that I'm spending on social media. It's not time that I'm spending, making phone calls. It also takes, into account text messaging, going on Safari, checking the weather every day, checking my emails for work, checking my personal emails. All of those things accumulate to that 5.5 hours a day on average that we're spending on our phone. So in knowing that we spend 5.5 hours of a 24-hour day on our phone, I'm going to encourage you all to put the devices away, power them down, turn them on Do Not Disturb, and be fully present for this presentation, because it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, so we're going to start off the way that we start off all of our classes at Advent Health, and we're going to talk about true or false game, okay? So when we play this true or false game, you guys can incorporate some movement into it if you'd like, if it's safe to do so. If you're driving, probably not. But if you think that the statement that's on the screen is true, then I encourage you all to just walk in place, okay? And if you think that it's false, maybe you wanna get some squats in for the day, right? Or maybe you wanna do some jumping jacks, or you could do a modified jumping jack by just lifting your arms up and down and alternating your right and your left leg. Or if you want to do none of those options, you can just share in the chat, or you can take yourself off of mute and let me know what you think it is. So the first statement is, on average, Americans check their phone 50 times a day. So just to put that into a time frame, that's roughly once every 30 minutes. Do we think that this is true or false? So I'm gonna look at the chat. Okay, so Allison said that her screen time is off on her phone, but she's sure it's just as bad, and you use 6.5 hours on your MacBook. I don't wanna know how much time I spend on my computer for school, because it's a lot, I'm sure. Okay, so a lot of people are saying true, and then Allison says false, probably more. So I'm going to give it to Allison and Gary. It is false, right? So it's actually more. So you guys were completely right. On average, Americans check their phone 96 times a day. That is once every 10 minutes. So we are constantly, it's like a habit, right? It's habitual. It's something that we do without even thinking about it, because it's so ingrained in our minds and in our brain that we just automatically go for it. Ever hear about the phantom phone vibrations, right? So a lot of people think that their phone is vibrating, but it's not. It's just that habit, like, oh, my phone must be vibrating. Someone must be reaching out to me or calling me or notifying me, right? Because we're so ingrained and engulfed in that technology. So good job. All right, next one. Americans spend more time on their devices than they do sleeping. Americans spend more time on their devices than they do sleeping. Do we think that this is true or false? True. All right, Gary says, we determine our value based on how many conversations we have. True, true. Yes, so everyone is in agreement here. It is true. Ding, ding, ding. You guys are absolutely right. So we are spending so much time on our devices, and just putting aside the cell phone, okay? So that's 5.5 hours on our cell phone. What if you think about the amount of time that you spend watching TV, watching Netflix, on your computer, again, for school or for work? It's a lot of time that we're spending dedicated to our devices. And when you ask yourself how much time you spend sleeping, is that in excess, right? Are you sleeping more than you're on your devices, or are you sleeping, or are you on your devices more than you are sleeping? Vice versa, right? I probably just messed that up. But the standard, that golden rule for sleep, is that we want to get 7 to 8 hours, right? So if we are spending a lot of time on our devices, we're taking away from the other things that help us live a whole life and approach it with holistic health. So keeping that in mind, we're going to unpack this a little bit later. All right, the average American spends 1.5 months a year watching television. Do we think that it is true or false? How much time do you think we spend watching television every year? More than that, right? False, false. Think that it's more. You guys are absolutely right. It is false. We spend 2.5 months a year watching television. So if we put that into days, that's about 75 days that we're spending watching television. How many of you are one of those people that just finds a show on Netflix and you're just compelled to watch it the whole way through, right? I may or may not have done Bridgerton in one day. Yes, I can completely agree with you there. Guilty, yeah, everyone's done it, right? So one of the things that I did this past year, I never heard about Schitt's Creek on Netflix. And when I found that show, I was just like amazed, in love. I laughed so much. I think I've watched it twice since, quarantine and everything happened this past year, but it was definitely one of my fun things to do when we couldn't do anything, right? So yeah, and even old shows that you've already seen. How many times have I watched The Office on Netflix? Many, many, many times. So yes, Jennifer, you and me are on the same wavelength right now. I love it. All right, next one. 9 out of 10 Americans report being offended when someone takes their phone out while dining together. All right. Who has ever been at a meal with someone and you are talking with them and they take out their phone to check it? How many of you? Yes, it's true, right? And it's so rude. Do we think that this is true? So everyone thinks that it's true, right? It's true, but yet 75% of the group admit that they have done it to someone else. And 1 in 5 say that we do this frequently. So we're taking out our phone, we're answering our work emails, we're scrolling on social media, we're doing whatever except being present and being engaged and spending that time with whoever you're with, right? This is one of the things that my husband really kept, nailing into my head is you spend a lot of time on your phone, okay? And it got to me. I definitely thought about making adjustments, and I did. I did make an adjustment. I'm gonna talk about that in a little bit. All right. Gary said that his wife hates when you check work email during dinner or watch a show together. Yeah, because dinner is for dinner. Watching a show is to watch a show. So we really just have to practice being mindful and being fully present in our relationships and in the things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis. All right, what technology devices do you use most on a daily basis? So I want you to think about all of it, okay? It's not just your cell phone. What are the things that you're using every day that is technology driven? So computer for work and school, absolutely, I'm right there. Mobile phone, laptop, computer, Alexa, good point there. Apple Watch, absolutely, right? That's a form of technology. What else do we have? So for those of you who are readers, how many of you read a real book, right? How many of you read a real book? A lot of people have transitioned to the technology form of that, which is a Kindle, an iPad, whatever other things they have out there nowadays that you can read. Those are all things that have blue light in it. Have any of you heard of blue light? Blue light is it's the artificial version of daylight, okay? So when we're trying to wind down at night and we turn to technology, we turn to watching the news, we turn to watching Netflix, we turn to reading a book on a Kindle, all of that has blue light and it's actually activating your brain to wake up. Like, hey, it's time to get going, morning time, it's all about, it's time to go, right? So just reading through the chat, a lot of you know about blue light. You've gotten a blue light protector on your glasses. I have one as well on my glasses. And then my cell phone, I always have the yellow coloring on my phone after a certain time of night. I think it's like 9 o'clock it sets in because I don't want to be waking up. I want to be winding down, right? So these are all important things that we have to think about and consider when we're talking about technology and what we interact with on a daily basis. So now I want you guys to approach it a little bit differently. I want you to consider your cell phone. What are you proud of on your cell phone? And what is something that you would want to change about how you interact with your cell phone? Take a couple seconds and just think about that. It might be a tough question. So for example, I'm pretty proud of the fact that I have 4 years worth of pictures on my phone. I have backed it up into the cloud, which is good because if my phone went kaput tomorrow, I would still have it. Yeah, Jeannie, you said the same thing. Okay, Gary wants to throw it away. Yeah, you love the screen time lockability. I like that. Proud of the limited number of contacts and all of your memories and pictures. Yes, I have like all of these contacts in my phone. And one night I was scrolling through, again, a quarantine thing that I did. I was just deleting people's numbers and names that I don't even talk to anymore from like 12 years ago. So very important thing that I'm proud of, right? One thing that I would want to change. One thing that I wanted to change was the amount of time that I spent on social media. That is something that I was not proud of. That was something that I only did on my cell phone. And that was something that contributed to the amount of time that I was engaging with my cell phone every single day. And that was something that I changed because I was tired of seeing how much time I spent on Instagram, how much time I spent on Facebook, because it impacted my overall mental health. And I'm super transparent about this. For some, social media is a great outlet to connect to people. There are pros to social media. But for others, social media really steals our joy because we compare ourselves to other people's lives. So I don't know if anyone else has felt that before, but that's definitely something that I took back of mine by removing myself from social media. All right, so some people haven't even seen Facebook or Instagram on a desktop. Yeah, it's definitely available. It's there. And social media is unhealthy. Yes, Jennifer. Good. All right. So let's talk about technology and mental health. So in a 2018 article from the New York Times, they mentioned that from 2008 to 2015, suicidal teenager hospital admission tripled. Tripled. That's a lot, okay? Another study found in the University of Copenhagen that the use of social media had attributed to lower life satisfaction. So this could be due to a lot of different factors, right? The suicidal teenagers might not just be from social media and technology. There are other factors that play into that, okay? But when I think about it, I think about how it impacted my overall mental health, okay? And being on social media, like I just said, I was comparing myself to other people. Oh, I wasn't married yet. Oh, I didn't have kids yet. Oh, I didn't have this awesome job yet. I wasn't an executive yet. All of these things that I was reminding myself of because I was comparing myself to the posts that I saw on social media. How many of you have ever heard of the phrase that social media is the highlight reel? It is the highlight reel through and through of someone's life. Rarely do you see people on social media sharing those raw moments of their life, sharing pictures of themselves without a filter on, sharing pictures of themselves in their most vulnerable times when they don't feel confident, when they feel ashamed. Those are things that we rarely come across. And so we have to be aware of the fact that it is the highlight reel. So when more of us are vulnerable and transparent about our struggles and what we're really going through, that's going to make social media a really cool platform. And that's the type of people that I started following back when I was actually on Instagram, because it made me feel normal. It made me feel like I fit in, right? All right, just breaking it down a little bit more. How does technology impact our relationships? So another study from the University of Copenhagen conducted a study on teenage females who were diagnosed with depression. So in order to understand the levels of mental health support between cell phone use and in-person conversation, researchers divided girls into 3 different groups. So one group was given a cell phone to text their moms for support. The second group was given a cell phone to call their mom for support. And then the third group talked to their mom in person for their support. So at the conclusion of this study, they found that when the girls were texting or calling their moms for support, it was actually almost equivalent to receiving no mental health support at all. That's powerful, right? So having that face-to-face interaction with others is beneficial. It shows us that we feel supported. And sometimes when we're texting someone, behind the screen, you're not getting the same emotions. You're not understanding someone's body language. You're not understanding someone's tone. So that face-to-face interaction is crucial. And obviously now with COVID, some of that has changed. I highly encourage FaceTime because it's as close to an actual interaction that you can get, right? Instead of just texting someone. But again, if that's the only thing that's available to you at the given moment, a text is better than not saying anything at all, right? All right, so in a study from the University of Texas, they found that when two individuals are seated at a table and there is a cell phone present, the level of trust between those two individuals is immediately lowered, and they engage in a less meaningful conversation together. So how many of you are a part of a family or have a family where you just have a no cell phone rule at the table? You don't encourage it. When you go out to dinner, everyone's phones are in their pocket, or maybe you even leave it in the car, or maybe you turn your phone off. Because in all the shows that I watch, they show the dinner table as being that spot where the teenagers and the kids are all on their cell phones. And I don't know about you, but when I was younger, I didn't have a cell phone until I was like in 8th grade, I think, 7th or 8th grade. And that was actually unheard of at the time. But now children are having cell phones so much earlier. So they're exposed to all this technology at an earlier age. So just reading through the chat, okay, phones are put away for your kids when you're eating. You have a no cell phone rule at the dinner table. I love it. Oh, but Gary, you say you violated the rule the most, though. I love it. At least we're aware of it, right? We can't make changes in our life unless we're aware of it, because how are you going to make a change on something that you don't even know exists? All right, so let's talk about technology and productivity. So 62% of emails are not relevant. Anyone think that that's funny? It's so true, right? 70% of emails are opened in less than 6 seconds. Instant gratification, right? How many of you have emails popping up as a banner on your iPhone? You see it immediately, right? And you feel so inclined to click on it and read more. It's like the clickbait of the email. You see who it came from. You're like, oh, I want to read this right now. Even though you're not in working hours, even though you're doing something else, you choose to read it in less than 6 seconds. That's a crazy statistic for me, but I completely agree. I relate to that. Smartphones have proven to diminish cognitive ability. Crazy, right? Half the time we use our smartphones for everything. We have access to Google and answers 24/7. If you don't know it, you're going to find the answer soon, right? But in previous years and decades, you had to use your cognitive ability to figure out the answers. You couldn't rely on a calculator. You couldn't rely on a smartphone. You couldn't rely on Alexa to tell you how to cook your meal. So they have been proven to diminish our cognitive ability. And then average employees are 26% more productive without a cell phone. Why do we think that? Why do we think that employees are more productive when their smartphone's not there? Because you can do your work without a smartphone. It's crazy, right? I love all the information in the chat that you guys are sharing. 80% off a sale of everything. All right, waste of an email. Yeah, they make it so hard to unsubscribe. I just unsubscribed to Belk today because I get double emails from them all the time about shoes being on sale or whatever sale they have going on. I never even click on it. It's just something that I automatically delete. So good. Allison, you said they can pay attention. Absolutely. You can pay attention without the distractions. All right. What we are going to do right now and put this into play. So I want you guys to grab a pen and paper if you do not already have it. I'll give you guys a couple seconds. And when you have your pen and paper, I want you guys to let me know in the chat that you're ready to do this activity together. All right. Ready. Give you guys a couple more seconds. And this is something that you can't do on your cell phone. Just want to put that out there for you guys, because we cannot make a T-chart on our cell phones yet, which is a great thing. And if we can, I'm glad I don't know about it. All right, what I want you all to do is use your piece of paper, and we are going to write I'll put it on the screen too. States on the left corner or the left-hand side of your T-chart. And then animals are going to be on the right-hand side of your T-chart. And then I want you to draw another T-chart to the far right-hand side of your piece of paper. And we're going to put the two categories of restaurants on the left and movies on the right. All right, I am going to use my phone as a timer. See, I'm relying on my phone right now for this because we're going to play a fun game. All right, so what I want you all to do is think about all of the states that you can think about. I'm going to give you guys 15 seconds to write down all the states that you can think about, starting right now. Write down all the states that you can think about. What state do you live in? What state are you from? What state have you traveled to? Write all those down the left-hand side of the T-chart. You got 3 seconds left. All right, quickly transition. How many animals can you write down in the right-hand side? How many animals can you write in the right-hand side? All right, go back to the state side. How many states can you write down? Ones that you haven't used yet. Got 8 seconds. And transition to animals. How many animals can you write down? Think about ones that you haven't yet written down yet. Funky animals, maybe elephants, I don't know. All right, put your pens down now. Okay, give your hand a little break there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to transition to the right-hand side of the T-chart. I'm going to give you all 1 full minute to write down all the restaurants that you can think about. All right, and after we do that, we're going to transition to the movies. All right, and we're starting right now. Write down all the restaurants that you can think of, all of them that you've been to. Really just crank it out on your piece of paper right now. All the places that you're super excited to go to. Maybe when you travel again. Think about all those restaurants. Make yourself a little bit hungrier. It's at that dinner hour. Maybe you're more inspired to think about those restaurant names. All right, you got about 30 seconds left. Keep going, keep pushing through. 20 more seconds. And 3, 2, 1. Transition to movies. Write down all the movies that you can think of. Favorite movies. Think about comedies, horror films. I don't know, documentaries that you've watched on Netflix recently, thrillers. Got 40 seconds left. Keep cranking out those movies. Maybe you're really stuck because you're not a movie person like I'm not a movie person, right? I'm way better at the restaurant side of this, but keep thinking about movies maybe that you've seen advertised somewhere, come across on Netflix. You got 18 seconds. All right, 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, put your pens down. Let's talk about it. All right, did you lose your train of thought at any point in this activity? Was it hard to switch back and forth, left and right? Did anyone feel stressed? Did anyone feel like we were in a competition? Which one was easier, do you think? The left-hand T-chart or the right-hand T-chart? All right, felt like it was a competition, always a competition, left, left. Okay, so the left was easiest. All right, so maybe from that, you all like to multitask because that's really what this is showing us. So when you think about multitasking, when you think about doing schoolwork, when you think about doing work, when you think about, raising your family, You're doing a lot of stuff at once. And oftentimes when you are trying to respond to an email at work or for school or do an assignment and someone calls you or texts you, you take a second, you text them back, and you get back to the grind, right? But how often do you lose your train of thought? And how does that impact your overall quality, right? So a lot of us, when we are multitasking, we've transitioned multitasking activities into multitasking people. And that's where it fails, because you can't multitask people. You have to give people your undivided attention, right? You have to engage with people. You have to actively listen to people. You have to respond to people. So in order to be able to respond in a concise and clear manner, as if you were listening to them, you have to pay attention. So you can't multitask. So what this shows us is that you typically don't want to be multitasking, because it's going to take away from your quality, and it's going to take away from your attention too, to whatever you're working on. So just reading through the chat, you guys made it a competition. Everyone's talking about how many states and animals you guys had. Ashamed that you know so many restaurants. I'm not ashamed about knowing restaurants, because restaurants mean good food, and I love good food because I don't have to cook, right? So I love it. I love all of your participation and engagement, and I hope you guys enjoyed that activity. It was a little brain break, but not really a brain break, because you guys are thinking, right? Dog and cat were your first animals. Yes, start with the basics. Start with the animals that you have, maybe, right? All right, so now what I want to transition to talking about is how we can begin to mindfully engage in the digital world. So what are things that you can do to be mindful in the amount of time that you spend with your electronics? So I want you to think about this for about a minute or two, and I want you guys to think about a couple questions. So first off, how can you be more present in your relationships right now? What are things that you can do to be more present? How can you engage more with your coworkers, your family, your friends, or your peers? And maybe what can you do to be more present in those long distance relationships that you have? And also, what can you start to do that'll decrease the amount of time that you're spending on technology? It's a huge load of questions, right? Pick one of them. Pick two of them. Answer whatever you want, but just share in the chat. You guys can also unmute yourself if you want to have a discussion. This is just an open, dialogue that we can have with each other and share tips and tricks on how we can mindfully engage in our digital world. So return to normal with face-to-face meetings. All right. Yeah. FaceTime. Good. Listening for understanding instead of reaction. Yes, absolutely. So as human beings, we are reactive in nature, and we always just want to say something. So in an exercise that I did a few years ago for work, we're talking about active listening and being attentive when we're listening to people. And the average person interjects very, very, very quickly. Within seconds, they interject without fully listening to the story and giving someone the floor, right? Because we want to share our experiences with others, but oftentimes we kind of take away from their experience of sharing with us because we're so quickly to react and interject. So thank you for pointing that out. Any other thoughts on how we can engage mindfully?
Brittany,
yeah,
I would say one thing that we can probably do more. I feel like in this digital environment, we've become so focused on like business and productivity. We don't do enough just fun activities, activities where we're trying to find similarities with other people, and just connecting with each other like we used to. Like I remember when we used to be able to say if you were born in New York, raise your hand or stand over here, and you find that common factor, and you immediately know I at least have this point of connection with this person. We don't have activities like that as much as we used to because everything is so business structured right now. And I also think that a lot of times people are worried about what they may lose, right? With every time you turn on the TV, you hear about unemployment or people being put out of their homes. And so I know for me, not being productive is extremely scary, right? Because what I want to do is focus on doing quality work. And so sometimes it's hard to take a moment and say, hey, let me actually connect with this person on a different level. And so maybe finding a way to use digital resources to rebuild those connections that we don't have.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. I completely agree with your comment, Gary. I just had a conversation actually with a friend of mine who was a worker of mine as well, and we talked about, you know, how we as human beings are so drawn to succeed in life that we will do whatever it takes. And sometimes that means cutting out the things that actually mean most to us and spending time with people and forming those relationships, because at the end of the day, those relationships are the things that no one can really replace, right? And when we think about our job, it is hard to replace a job, right? But those relationships that we have are so much more meaningful, and they offer you that support during those hard times. So it's important that we establish those relationships and find those connections with people that have similar, you know, likes and dislikes with us. And maybe if you're different than someone, that's an opportunity to explore the other side. And I encourage and welcome that too when we're forming those relationships. So just finding time to set aside and connect with others, to know that you're not alone in this world, and know that the experiences that you have are unique to you, but also they could be unique to someone else, so that you all share that in common with each other. So that's something also to point out there too. Any other thoughts on this before I give you all some tips and tools? All right, so to engage in a digital world, first off, some tips: practice mindfulness. All right, so what we're gonna do together is we're gonna do a quick breathing activity. And what I want you all to do is close your eyes, because I can't see any of you anyways, right? So what I want you all to do is close your eyes, put one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly, if you're in a safe space to do so. All right, if you're driving, don't do this. Well, don't shut your eyes, okay? So put one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly. I want you to exhale all the stale air out of your lungs. You can sigh it out of the mouth. You can do a deep ah, let it go. And then I slowly want you guys to breathe in through your nose. Just breathe, okay? Normal breath. And then exhale, open up your mouth, side out, let it go. Inhale through your nose. And exhale, let it go out of the mouth, side out. One more breath. Inhale through your nose. Exhale, side out of the mouth. Open up your mouth wide, let it go. Right? Now I want to ask you guys a question. Which hand rose first when you took a breath? Was it your hand on your chest, or was it the hand on your belly? Which hand rose first when you took a deep breath? Hand on the belly, hand on the chest? Let me know. Gary says chest. Any other thoughts? And this is a really good activity to do to bring awareness into how we breathe, because most people breathe through their chest. It looks like I was just muted, guys. So most people breathe through their chest, all right? And we don't do this all the time. When we are babies, if you've noticed a newborn baby or had your own newborn baby before, how do they breathe? They breathe through their belly. So in a clinical setting, you're focusing on their belly, rising up and down. That's how you're gonna count their respirations. And we forget how to breathe. That's the long story short. When we're infants, we know how to breathe fully. We notice how to use the full capacity of our lungs. That's what our lungs are there for, right? And then as we transition into adulthood, when stress starts to play into our lives, and you know, we go through trials and triumphs, we start to have shallow breathing. We're cutting our corners on our breath. When our breath is our life force, that's what we need to sustain and be viable. So now what I want you all to do is place a hand on the chest, place a hand on the belly. And I want you all to be intentional in your breath. So I want your breath to start in your belly. So inflate and expand your belly on your inhale. And then slowly allow the expansion to grow up to your chest. So you're expanding your chest on your inhale. And then on the exhale, open up your mouth, side out, let it go. And then on your inhale, slowly inhale through the belly. Feel the belly rise, the ribs rise and expand, the chest rise, and open up the mouth, side out, let it go. Again, inhale deep into the belly. Feel the belly rise, the ribs rise, chest rise. Open up the mouth, side out, let it go. How do you feel? Is there a difference in the way that you feel when you breathe intentionally through your belly versus when you breathe through your chest? Let me know. Any differences in the way that you feel just in 3 breaths from breathing properly through the belly? Feel free to unmute yourself. Yeah, Allison, you feel like you're getting more air. You are, right? Because we're using the full capacity of our lungs when we're expanding and allowing that air to flow through properly instead of cutting off the airflow, right? So that's just a quick tip and tool that you can do in your day. Another thing too, we literally live like this, especially with technology. And if you know what I'm talking about, our shoulders are hiked up to our ears. So right now, before I even say anything, where are your shoulders? Where are your shoulders relative to your ears right now? If they're hiked up like this, it's because we're either stressed out or we just have really bad posture today. What I want to encourage you guys to do is drop your shoulders down and away from your ears as if you're trying to set them into your back pocket. Notice the difference in the movement, right? How much space do you got up there? We literally are like this 24/7. I have to remind myself of that. And I know that my shoulders are hiked up to my ears and I still do it. It's a habit almost, but I have to break that habit. I have to remind myself. All right, utilizing the do not disturb. I let Gary know today that my phone is always on do not disturb. It's a bad habit that I have, but it's a way that I don't pay attention to my phone 24/7 because I don't feel it vibrating. I don't hear the dings going off. The one thing that annoys me is I can't figure out how to turn off the dings on my Apple Watch. So that's one of my reminders, even though it's on do not disturb. Turning off notifications, that was a game changer for me. I was checking emails on the weekends at nighttime for employees, and I didn't need to do that. Those are things that could have waited. It wasn't a crisis that I needed to address. It's just a simple email. I don't need to answer those emails. I can answer those emails during working hours. I set that boundary. I didn't need to see the notification of all the emails in my inbox because that would give me anxiety. So I turned off the notifications. Turn off the automatic next episode setting on Netflix. How many of you know that that exists? There's a setting on Netflix that automatically plays the next episode. Whatever device you're using, it's going to start to play it, or you can press a button and it'll play it even quicker, right? There's a setting that you can turn that off. Reorganize your phone screen. And so what I mean by that, I'm going to show you guys my phone right now. The first screen on my phone is nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's a blank canvas. It doesn't give me anxiety. I don't see all the notifications on my Outlook. I don't see the notifications on anything other than you saw I have an email in there, right? Probably a pointless email. Game changer. You can organize your stuff to be, you know, if you're type A, OCD like me, I like my stuff in windows and folders, and I like organization. I really liked doing that. Delete scrolling apps. I deleted Instagram, I deleted Facebook. The one thing that I did not delete is LinkedIn. I use that for a professional networking site. I've noticed that I scroll though. I'm reading people's posts. It's the same as going on social media. They're more stimulating for me to read people's posts because it's in a professional capacity rather than seeing, you know, who bought a new car, who bought a new house, yada, 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 right? But when I deleted Instagram and Facebook out of my life, I noticed that my mindset changed. I wasn't comparing myself to anyone because I wasn't exposed to it 24/7. And I took back that. So, you know, it's not for everyone. It's a great way to connect to people too. So if you use social media as a way to connect to people that don't live in this area, keep doing it. But notice how much time you spend scrolling. All right. All right. Utilize smartphone time limits. There is, you know, time limits that you can embed in your phone. So that'll tell you, hey, you spent a lot of time on this. You're almost approaching that time limit. All right. Engaging in face-to-face conversations when it's safe to do so. Go right ahead. Having those face-to-face conversations are key to maintaining the relationships that we have. And then implementing a no phone time with family or friends. Very important, right? Be aware, be present for those conversations. And then lastly, reconsider your priorities and goals. So what are your goals? What are your priorities? And how is engaging in technology helping you get there? All right. So using technology to help support you and making you feel fulfilled in reaching those goals and fulfilling your priorities instead of mindlessly scrolling, right? And then the last thing is to talk about, like I said, setting time limits, using FaceTime apps, being mindful of the media you are consuming. This is the most important bullet point I feel like I want to talk about. How many of you watch the news before you go to sleep at night? How many of you watch the news 24/7? And I'm not judging anyone. How many of you have it in the background, right? What does it do for you? You might not be paying attention to it, but there is a connection between watching the news and increased depression, right? So I was actually diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and depression about 6 years ago. And a lot of stuff happened in my life. I got help. I talked to someone. I did things that improved my mental health, my physical health, and my emotional health. One of those things was stopping watching the news. I don't want to hear about all the bad things that are going on. I'll take the highlight reel if I can, right? I'm going to choose what media I am consuming on a day-to-day basis. My mom is a perfect example of this. Every single time I go into her house, she has the news playing in the background. And every time I say, why is this on? All the time. My sister does the same thing, and she doesn't even live here. She lives in Georgia, but when she comes down, she's like, yep, I noticed the same thing. It does play into our mental health. Negativity just spreads like wildfire. So you want to surround yourself with positive influences, positive messages. Yes, the news is important. It's important to be aware of what is going on, but also making sure you're taking small doses of it, right? And post positivity. So one of the things that we do to post positivity is we have an employee Facebook page. I know I said I don't have Facebook. This is the only reason why I will go on Facebook is when I'm posting something for employees. It's a great way to connect to people. It's a great way to share your life. And I encourage you to share the vulnerable pieces of your life with others. Also, you can share the highlight reel too, because we want to celebrate success, but we also want to celebrate the fact that we're not perfect, right? There are things that we are more alike in than we think, and those are things that we should celebrate. So if you guys have a page for your students, if you have a page for your peers, right, in the law program, connect with each other, get to know each other, break bread with each other, have meals with each other, learn who you are studying beside, make those relationships, create a good experience, cultivate a positive experience in a positive environment. And that is all I have. So if any of you have questions, I will feel free to open up the floor, all right? And then also just reflect on this. So how has the topic that we've talked about today, how is that gonna impact your life personally? What are some action items that you are going to be taking in your life to apply this material? Write it down. Hold yourself accountable. All right.
Brittany, I can tell you this. I am definitely going to take a I'm going to take a deep dive into how much time I'm spending in each of these apps and really try to make sure that I find some more balance. I think the good thing about this is, you mentioned it earlier, being self-aware, right? Self-assessment, being able to reflect, and so even though I try to make that a practice, one of the things that I very rarely think about self-assessment on is how much time I'm spending on social media or how much time I'm spending answering work emails at times in which maybe they're not necessary. And so I definitely think that, I can't be as effective when I'm exhausted and I'm drained. And so this is going to be a good opportunity for me to find a way to find some balance to make sure that I am not expending all of my energy And by Thursday, I'm exhausted.
Yep. I agree. Any other thoughts? I know personally when like I said, when I cut out all the distractions, I was more present and intentional in the work that I do, whether it's work related for my own personal, self-esteem. So working out, instead of scrolling through social media at the gym, in between your sets, actually just taking a rest, allowing yourself to decompress and prepare yourself for the next exercise that you're about to do. So that is all that I have for all of you.
And I will tell you this, Brittany, just one more fun fact, and I just kind of thinking about it. The last time I unplugged from social media, I published a book within 3 months.
Wow.
So it's the creativity and the productivity on a personal level as well as a professional level definitely increased when I wasn't so consumed with some of the small things. And that is something that I try my best. I always say, stay out of the weeds, stay out of the weeds, stay out of the weeds. And I have to remind myself of that all the time, but it is not always effective and successful. So this is just that gentle reminder, that nudge that says, hey, don't forget, you can do this, and it's okay to be different from everyone else if you have to, and kind of unplug from everything. So I will tell you, I am extremely appreciative of the information that you shared. I know that a lot of our students had class that started at 6, so a few of them had to jump out of here a little bit early. But we are so appreciative of the information that you provided. And I think that this is going to be a great presentation for us to share with them. Once this is over and we post a recording, I think that we'll definitely expand our reach with this. And hopefully this is going to continue to be helpful for people even beyond today. And I can't tell you how appreciative we are of the impact that that's going to have and that you have had just by giving us this presentation. So we are extremely grateful and appreciative of that.
Yeah, I'm glad that I was able to connect with all of you, and the dialogue was awesome. Everyone was very engaged in the chat too, so it makes it fun.
Absolutely. So what I will say is this, we did very good, even though we started a little bit late by giving some people some time to jump in. We are still finishing up right around 6 o'clock, just a little bit after. And so we appreciate that. I know one of the resources that once we use it, we can't get back is time. And so I know how appreciative everybody will be of that. Brittany, we thank you so much. Jeannie, thank you for being here.
I just wanted to say thank you too. Wonderful, wonderful presentation. That will help a lot.
Absolutely. And I hope that we're able to collaborate again in the very near future.
Yeah.
I am confident that we will be able to. Our dean is extremely, extremely big on wellness, right? Health and wellness, holistic health and wellness. And so I can assure you that I am confident that we will continue to invest in these types of programs. And as I mentioned to you before, great presentation, and I will definitely be making a request for Brittany again if possible. So thank you once again, and I just want to tell everybody, have a great evening. If you have any questions about this presentation, feel free to reach out to myself, feel free to reach out to Ms. Hoban, feel free to reach out to Mrs. Holmes. And Brittany, I don't know if you're okay with it, but if maybe we could share your contact information if people have specific questions for you as well. If not, I can definitely send over some questions if I get any. So absolutely. I want to thank everybody for being here, and I am proud to be able to give you back the rest of your day. But thank you so much. Great presentation, and I hope to see you all again soon.
Thanks, Gary. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.